with us a little bit about Tulane. Tonight's session is actually going to be a little bit more about the college application itself. I have some of my colleagues who are also joining me. We've got Kristen and Leela. They are both going to be answering your questions throughout the course of the presentation, so feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. You're welcome to add stuff to the chat as well. And then Lachlan's going to introduce himself in a second. He'll tell you a little bit about his college search process. My name is Jeff. I'm the Director of Admission here at Tulane. My college search was kind of unique. I went to Tulane and I absolutely loved it, but I've actually graduated with the class of 2005, and then I've worked here in the Office of Admission for the last 15 years. And I enjoy doing these sessions so much because I think it's really important to share with you all, prospective students, really what admission officers are looking for and how you can make yourself stand out for all the right reasons in the college application process. The last thing I'll say before I kind of start things out and introduce Lachlan, I want to make sure you all know out there that I know times are crazy right now. And first off, we really appreciate you tuning in tonight because we know you're living in a virtual world all the time. But the one thing I want to mention to y'all is that, you know, as crazy as it is out there right now, the feeling of anxiety and of uncertainty for us here in New Orleans is actually somewhat familiar. And that's because 15 years ago, we went through Hurricane Katrina. And a lot of people after Katrina said, you know, when is New Orleans ever going to come back? Are the restaurants ever going to open again? Is anything ever going to be working again? And there was that same sense of fear and uncertainty. And, you know, I look at New Orleans now, and yes, we still have some work to do, but we are a stronger and smarter, better place because of everything we went through. And I think it's these really challenging situations in life that end up changing you the most. And so you're being challenged big time right now, but these are some of the things that will change you, and in many ways change you for the better into a stronger and smarter and better version of yourself. So hang in there. We're gonna get through this. I promise you that. Lachlan, you wanna introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hey y'all, my name is Lachlan. I'm a current senior at Tulane. I'll be graduating this May. I studied political science and English here. I also work at the Office of Admissions with all these wonderful counselors here. So I've been doing that for 2 years and I've absolutely loved every bit of it. I can't highlight Jeff's words enough about going through hard times like Katrina because I'm also from Louisiana. So I definitely know what it was like going through that and yeah, coming out stronger on the other end. But yes, if y'all have any questions about like the student experience or what it's like just being a student at Tulane, I've been doing it for the past 3.5 years. So I can give you the most up-to-date stuff.
I love it. And so Lachlan's also going to, if you also wouldn't mind just checking out the Q&A as well, if there's some questions you might want to answer, feel free to chime in the chat, ask questions as they come across. The presentation tonight is also, everything you're going to see is also going to be available on my blog. So while it does seem like you're going to be getting a lot of information right now, let me make sure I start the slideshow. While you're getting a lot of information right now, let me just make sure I have the right one. Rest assured that all of this is also available on our website as well. So don't feel like you have to take lots and lots of notes because we'll have all of it available for you as well. So hang tight a second while I get this shared. Oh, here we go. Oh, and by the way, if you stick through the entire presentation, you will get to meet my brand new puppy, and that's who you hear squeaking in the background. One of the things I did to get through my quarantine experience was I got a brand new puppy named Vincent, and you are gonna meet him, and if you stick around for the whole hour, I promise you, you will be glad that you did. So tonight we're talking all about tips for applying to selective schools, and Tulane is a selective school. Our admit rate this past couple years has been between 10 and 20%, so certainly a selective institution. That doesn't mean that we're a better institution than a school that has a higher admit rate, but it just means that we're one of these selective universities. And so this evening, I'm going to be going through all sorts of information about how you can make yourself stand out for all the right reasons with these selective schools that you might be applying to. So here is actually what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, and we're going to go through it very quickly, but as I mentioned, don't worry, all this stuff is available on the website and on my blog as well, and you're welcome to reach out with us if you have any questions, and stay tuned to the Q&A as well. We're going to be talking a lot about academics, so obviously academics are the most important part of a college application, and so we're going to talk about what are college offices looking for when you actually apply with the academic component. No matter what you hear, getting into college first and foremost is an academic competition. So yes, we do care about all the things your teachers have to say about you. We do care a lot about what you're writing. Vincent, let me just have that for a second. I'll find him in a second. We do care a lot. We do care a lot about you know, what you're doing in your extracurriculars. We care a lot about what you've written about in your essay, and all that is a part of the holistic admission process. But at the end of the day, first and foremost, it is an academic competition. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about testing, the SAT and the ACT. And then after that, we're actually going to talk about the process of filling out a common application. So I'm actually going to go with you through the process of filling out a common application so you can see how you can make yourself look really strong in the activity section, in the essay, and then the very, very important optional statement. We'll talk about the additional information section, and then we'll talk about engagement in the admission process. So it's going to go by very, very quickly. But again, if you've got any questions, post them in the Q&A as we're going. So before we start, I want to give you all some tips that may seem obvious. And again, Lachlan, if any of these do apply to you, feel free to chime in. If not, chime in at any point in time. These tips are going to come up time and time again over the course of the next hour. And so they might seem a little bit vague right now, but throughout this presentation, you're going to see what I mean by some of these things. First thing you're going to want to do is start early. You can put a big check mark next to that box because by being at this webinar tonight, you have started early. For those of you all out there that are juniors in high school, you have started this process by coming to this webinar and learning about what colleges are looking for. So what we don't want to see, we get students every single year that are panicking on November 15th and they've got some sort of technical glitch with their application because they've waited to the last minute. Start this process early, but don't feel like you have to get overwhelmed by it right now. I know because you've got some downtime, your mom and dad are probably hounding you. You don't have to start on the essay yet. You've got all summer to kind of figure out these things and put the nuts and bolts together. So now's a good time to start formulating lists and making some ideas. And then the summer before your senior year is a great time to kind of start the search process and start the actual process of applying. Be authentic. This is one of the hardest tips that you are going to get in the college application process. Everyone's going to say, be yourself, be authentic. And it's easier said than done because in the mind of a 17 or 18-year-old who is applying to college, the mindset might be, what should I be doing for colleges? Or what can I be doing that'll look good on my college application? And really what we're looking for is the authentic version of yourself. You know, our job here as admission officers is to find students who are going to be a great fit at Tulane. So if you're presenting yourself as someone you're not in your application, you might end up at a school that's not the best fit for you. So what we're looking for when you read your application is who are you really at your core and who are you most authentically? I'm going to give you a lot of tips tonight that are going to teach you about how to be authentic. And I know, like I said, it's easier said than done. Trust me, I'll work this one through with you. Less is more. So a lot of times students feel like they need to send in as much information as they possibly can. They've got to send in a 5-page resume and a lot of additional recommendation letters. Tulane had almost 45,000 students apply this year. Some of our peer institutions, NYU, 70,000 applications. Colleges like UCLA, over 100,000 students apply to those schools every year. And I'll candidly tell you, while we spend a lot of time making sure we take a holistic review, we do go through applications fairly quickly. So the better you can get us the most succinct information in a shorter way, the better your application will come across. My resume as a 36-year-old adult is 1 page long. Your resume shouldn't be 7 pages long. And I'm going to teach you through the course of this presentation how you can trim the fat on your application and really put the best information that colleges want to see and leave out some of the things that's just kind of filler and that we don't really need to see in the first place. That goes along with taking the 30,000-foot view. So when you're reading when you're doing your application, it's really easy to get into the weeds. You know, you're really focused on your essay and then you're really focused on all these different parts of the application. It's important to take a moment to pause and take the 30,000-foot view. And that's kind of the big picture view from above. The reason why that's important is because that's how I view the application. So when I'm seeing your application, I'm taking that big picture view, I'm giving it a fairly fast read. Of course, I'm reading everything you send us, but I'm not getting into the weeds as much. So you want to make sure you take a look at that application and say, okay, when I take the big picture view from it, how are colleges going to look at this? And what are they going to look at when they see that? Again, I'll give you some tips on how you can do this throughout the course of this presentation. Do a big blast of it and then walk away. So here's what I mean by this. August 1st, when the common application becomes available, what I want you to do is put as much information as you can as possible, whether that's in August or September. So fill out all the information about you, your information about where you're from, put as much information into your essay as you can, put all the stuff you can into your extracurricular list. And then once you've done as much as you can in 1 sitting or 2 sittings, I want you to just walk away. I want you to walk away from the entire college application process. And I really mean this. I want you to go out and do something else. I want you to go out and play sports, play with your siblings, focus on something completely unrelated to the college admission process. Then, maybe 3 weeks later, you come back and look at what you've done with fresh eyes. And 3 weeks later, or 2 weeks later, your whole essay takes a whole different stance on it. You can kind of see how it looks from a first-time viewer's point of view, or you can kind of see how it might look for an opportunity if you've actually taken a break from it. So about 2 years ago, I drank the Kool-Aid. My sister told me, she's like, Jeff, you are a really fast talker. You get really excited about these things. Have you considered meditating? And I was like, I don't know if that'll work for me. My attention span is very short. And I did. I started meditating and it worked. It was just this thing that's really added some levity and calmness to my life. And so for me, if I was filling out the common application, that would be my pause. That would be what I do when I take a break from it. I would do some meditating. If you're thinking about meditating, now's a great time to start. There's this great app I have on my phone. It's called Calm. Give it a shot. I promise you, at this time of anxiety, it can go a long way. But whether it's playing sports, cooking, spending time with your family, do something else for a little bit and then come back to it and look at it with fresh eyes. The last tip I have for you is just to hit that preview button frequently. If you hit the preview button, you can see what the application looks like from my end when I see it from the college side. Anything on that, Lachlan, that you would add on? Did you start your college application process pretty early?
No, probably not as early as most of these people. I didn't start till my senior year, actually. I had gone on my first visit of Tulane in my junior year, but it wasn't until my senior year that I was like, okay, let's actually start looking at stuff. But I do want to highlight that out of all these tips, Jeff, the best one, and if you can want to take one away, is the being authentic part. And that's something that's just really got to be at the forefront, because once you apply to colleges, and then also once you get here, the mentality that you have in high school completely changes, particularly at Tulane, because I'm the only person from my high school who's here. So you kind of get to start all over again and just be your own self. And if you really let that show when you're applying there, what is it about you that makes you unique? No, you don't have to have solved cancer or had the solution to world hunger yet, because we're obviously not looking for that either. But it's just about like you said, a great example, Jeff, for you is that whole meditation change. It's what is it about you that's a little bit different, or just makes you you? And if you just put that out there and sell it, that's what's going to be, everyone's going to remember that.
Yep. We'll definitely talk some more about that when we talk about the chances that you have in your application to show the authentic version of yourself. So those tips are going to come back time and time again throughout the course of this presentation. Remember them. Okay. So as I mentioned, when you apply to college, first and foremost is an academic competition, which means the biggest factor in a college admission decision will be how you've done in high school. Yes, we've got all these factors that come into play. Certainly with a holistic review, we're looking at everything you put in the application, but the number one thing we're looking for is how you have performed in your 4 years of high school. What we are looking for, and there's no, textbook answer to this. There's no, GPA that we are looking for. But what we are looking for is that have you been able to find that balance? And here's what I mean by this. Some of you watching tonight can load up on all the hardest AP or honors or IB courses that your high school offers and do really, really well. Some of you are more like me, and you can take some honors and some AP courses and still maintain a strong GPA. And some of you might happen to be on the other side of that spectrum. Wherever you fall on that spectrum, we're hoping that you found the balance between taking challenging courses that still allow you to maintain a strong GPA. What I will assure you of is that no matter where you fall on that spectrum, there will be a college or university out there for you. Granted, the students that are on the side of the spectrum that are taking really, really tough classes and still maintaining that strong GPA, those are going to be the students that are more likely to be admitted to some of these super, super selective schools with very low admit rates. It's just the nature of this process. But I will assure everyone watching this evening that there will be a school out there for you, whether it's a state school, whether it's an Ivy League school, whether it's a community college, or whether it's a school in your own backyard. The balance that you have found will be respected by someone out there in the college application process. So do the best you can in the most challenging courses that you feel like you can do well in. I also mentioned play on your strengths, and this one's going to be a little bit more specific of a tip to us here at Tulane. One of the best benefits that you will get if you choose to apply and enroll at Tulane is that when you apply to our university, if you are admitted into all of our schools and all of our majors without any separate applications required. So you don't have to apply to be in our business school. There's not a separate application for pre-med. Simply by being admitted, you're admitted into all of our programs. Now, what this means is that I don't read an application any differently based on what you think you want to major in. Reason being, when you arrive on our campus, by the click of a mouse, you can change your major. You want to change it again 2 weeks later, you can easily change your major again. So we don't feel like we should be admitting you based on what you've done to a specific major if you can so easily change your major. We're of the school of thought that says you are, 17, 18 years old. You shouldn't have to know what you're doing for the rest of your life right now. So that means we don't have specific requirements for any of our majors. But what we do want is for you to play on your strengths. So if you love the sciences, then we would love it if you maybe doubled up on your science in your senior year. If you just are not a language person at all and you just could not stand take that language in your 4th year, you'd rather take more of a social science or an English class instead, by all means. Now, this is a warning though. This is not going to be the same at a lot of schools. There are some schools that are really heavy on maybe a specific engineering program that are going to expect certain levels of mathematics. For us, we want you to play on your strengths. We want you to take classes that you enjoy. Reason being, if you're taking classes you enjoy, you're probably more likely to do well in them. So take classes you like. Stop worrying so much about the classes you think Tulane wants you to see, and take the challenging courses that play on your strengths. It's something that's really important to us, is for you to have a curriculum that you enjoy, and that might lead you to a specific major in college, but by no means specific classes being required for any of our majors. That brings me to the next question. If there's any moms watching tonight, hi moms, I know you want to ask me this question. And that question is, would you rather see the A in the regular class or the B in the AP class? I get that question all the time, and moms, there's no answer to that question. The only way I would answer it is by saying I'd rather see the A in the AP class, but that's not always possible. Again, every single student watching tonight, and there's almost 200 of you all, each of you has a different personal balance. Each of you has different courses that allow you to play on your strengths. So as long as you found that balance, that's what colleges are going to be looking for. Last couple of things, everything is contextual. It's our job as admission professionals to know that your school might limit the amount of AP classes you can take, or that your school doesn't even offer AP classes, or that honors calculus at your high school is a really, really tough class. We will know all these things, and we will review every application in the context of what's available to you. Lastly, two very quick things. Rarely will there be minimums, so there will never be a minimum GPA cutoff to apply to Tulane. We'll read your entire application cover to cover. And lastly, in the wake of coronavirus, how will we review pass-fail? It is completely fine to be pass-fail. You will in no way be penalized in this process. What we will do is kind of assume that the grades you had continued to trend with will continue into that second semester. So if you are in an upward trend in your first semester junior year, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt, assuming that would continue. We're not going to assign letter grades to pass or fail. We're just going to look at how you've done and know you tried the best you could in these very, very unique circumstances. It does mean we might put a little more emphasis on either your first semester junior or first semester senior year, but again, we understand that these are unique times and we're never going to ding you for going pass-fail. Okay, the next part of the academic process here when you apply is your testing. Testing is a big hot button issue right now. Obviously, it's a lot more challenging to take the test. And for those of you that are juniors watching tonight, you might be made aware that Tulane has chosen to go test optional for the students that are applying to college in the fall, which is great news. We understand that tests are limited. In fact, the SAT just announced today that they are no longer offering the June test. So for a temporary 1 year, we will be test optional. So it's good news for students that just don't have the access to the test, or they're only able to take it once, or they don't believe that test is the most reflective of whether they should be academically admitted to a school. We do have another webinar coming up in a couple days all about test optional, so I won't go too much into the details of that right now. Certainly welcome to tune back into that test optional webinar if you do have questions. Now, if you do choose to take the test, and you are able to, and if anyone out there is a sophomore, I always recommend finding the test that works the best for you. So some of you all might be much stronger on the ACT or SAT. The good news is on the college side, we have a conversion chart between the SAT and ACT, and we'll only take the higher score between the two. So that means roughly a 1420 is worth a 30 on the ACT. If you take both tests, we'll just take the higher of those two scores and give you the benefit of the doubt. So again, you might have a test that resonates better with you. You can always practice and see which one is a better fit for you. We do super score the SAT at Tulane, but we do not super score the ACT. Again, I mentioned here test optional. If you go on fairtest.org, there's over 1,000 schools that are test optional. Many of these are super selective schools like Tulane. Schools like Boston University just announced they're going test optional, but there are some schools that have always been that way. University of Chicago, GW, Wake Forest, they have really strong test optional plans as well. So juniors, you're in luck. You don't have to stress out about this as much as you used to. If you do have additional questions, please do turn into our webinar that's coming up in the next couple of days. Okay, so we've got the two key components of your application before you've even started the common application itself. So your grades are what they are, your testing is what it is, then it's time to actually fill out the common application. Now this is a unique part in time because at this point in time, you can't control what's happened in the past. You can't control your grades, you can't control your SAT score unless you're Aunt Becky, and then you can. But then it's time to actually start the common application process. I had to make a joke. So then we're gonna start the common application, and now everything is in your control. The grades and scores are in their rearview mirror. You can't change them. Everything you put in your common application is an opportunity for you to make a really great impression on the college admission committee. So let's go through the process of actually filling out that common app. The first section you're going to get to when you fill out the common application is the extracurricular section. As I mentioned, we're big on holistic review here at Tulane. So what you do outside of the classroom is a really important part of the college search process and a really important part of the review process as well. Let me tell you, the first thing I'll talk to you guys about is extracurricular activities during the time of coronavirus. We get it. There are no spring musicals right now. There is no soccer practice. There is no dance team. And we have absolutely nothing but compassion and understanding to everything you're going through right now. So what I don't want you to do is feel like when this is all over, you've got to make up for lost time or figure out a bunch of extracurriculars to do because you think colleges want to see it. When this is all over and done and you finally escaped your house, I want you to go out and live your life. I want you to do things you enjoy. I want you to participate in stuff that makes you happy. And I don't want you to feel like you have to do things just for us on the college side. And that brings me to the second point. One of the biggest misconceptions with college admission is that college admission officers are looking for well-rounded students. Each of you has to be a perfectly crafted, well-rounded student who's done tennis and debate and is on student government and does all these things. You don't have to be well-rounded. You heard it here first. The reality is, it's my job as the director of admission here at Tulane to build a well-rounded class of students. So what that means is that I need artists, I need musicians, I need someone who's going to be the running back on my football team. I want someone who's going to be super strong in student government, but you do not have to do all of those things. What I'd rather see is you've got a couple things that you enjoy doing and that you're pretty good at and that you might consider doing when you get to my campus in the fall. Again, don't feel like you have to send in this laundry list, and that goes to the next tip. Less is more. I don't need to see every single blank on the Common App filled out. I need to see the couple things you're really good at and that you're enjoying. I'll teach you how to trim the fat in the next couple slides. Next step is stick with it. I absolutely understand that ACLs get torn. Sometimes you get cut from the musical you thought you were going to be in and you can't continue something for all 4 years. But if you do have something that you've done more than one semester, that's something I kind of like to see. I know there's going to be a break in that during your second semester right now. We totally get it. But if there's something you love to do for sophomore and junior year and then you picked it right back up in your senior year, that's great. I'm not saying you have to continue something your whole 4-year experience in high school, but I do like to see if there's something you've done more than just a one-off. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that in a second. Next, I think it's important that you check your privilege. So Tulane recruits a wide range of students from all different backgrounds. And some students have amazing opportunities to do incredible experiences around the world. I'm talking about service trips to Costa Rica or Fiji, or an opportunity to intern at a hedge fund or shadow a doctor. Don't get me wrong, these are all amazing experiences, and you should absolutely include them on your common application. But you want to be cognizant of the privilege that you've had to do these things, because colleges don't want to fill up their entire class just so those kids don't realize that they were really lucky to get to do some of these amazing opportunities all around the world. Because there's a huge population of students applying to college that don't have the ability to do that, and they don't have the privilege of spending money to do these things, and maybe they've got other obligations instead. So if you have done some of these great trips, by all means include that in your application, but just be cautious of how you present that to admission committees and show a sense of humbleness and awareness of the opportunities that you have had in your life. Two final things. Everything is context-based. So right now is a perfect example of this. I would never hold it against you if you're not doing extracurricular activities right now. I'm never going to hold it against you if you have family obligations or if your high school just doesn't offer that many extracurricular activities. Every application is read within the context of what's available to you and what opportunities you made for yourself based on the situation you're in. Some of you might have opportunities to do some creative things right now. You know, if you're a guitar player, you might go on Instagram Live and teach your friends how to play guitar a couple times. Or maybe you're a cook and you love to cook for your family. Why not make a little, fake cooking show on your Instagram Live? Whatever you want to do. Maybe you're a TikTok all-star. I don't care. Get creative with it, but don't worry. Everything is done within context, and we don't have any expectations for you right now at all. Now, the last one I kept on there, usually not in the time of coronavirus. We love it when students have a job. I think a lot of times everyone thinks there's a secret extracurricular that all admission officers are looking for. Like all of us admission directors got together one night and said, this year we all want oboe players, or, this year it's got to be a crew coxswain. Like that never happens. There's no silver bullet extracurricular activity. Except having a job is something that when my staff and the rest of us here at Tulane has a look at it, they really are impressed with students that have gotten to have a job. It shows time management, it shows communication skills, it shows how to deal with customers. When I was a high school student, I was a stockroom boy at Pier 1 Imports. And you want to talk about building character, you work at Pier 1 during the holiday season, it will teach you a lot about that. I know the economy is going to be really crazy when this is all over, so getting a job is going to be easier said than done. So don't stress out about that. But if you've had a job in the past or you are able to get one in the future, I think colleges would love to see that. Lachlan, anything to add about the extracurriculars you did in high school at all?
Yeah, I would definitely say consistency is key. So I was only involved about 3 things throughout high school. I did student council, I did theater, and I did quiz bowl because I was a huge nerd who loved trivia back then. And it's really great for trivia nights now. But I stuck with them throughout all of high school. So I joined all of these my freshman year and I just stuck through them. And I didn't really try to get involved in like 20,000 things because I was like, I A, don't have time for that, and B, don't really like everything that much. And I just got really good or got really dedicated or involved in the things that I did like. Um, and so I'm glad to know that that's a tip that you're giving out.
That's perfect. I love it. I do think it's the quality of the experience or the quantity of the things that you've done. All right, so we've heard about these hypothetical examples. Let's actually see what this looks like when we're filling out the common application activities section itself. I know, we'll see you in a second. My dog is very excited about this. Okay, so I'm gonna give you some examples of how you can stand out for the wrong reasons in the college search process, college application process when you fill out the Common App. This first young man is called the redundant one. And this happens very, very frequently. I'm gonna read these things out to you. You can probably see it on your screen. The first thing, soccer, varsity soccer captain. Next thing, soccer club soccer captain. After that, soccer youth soccer weekend league. After that, he was a soccer mentor. At the bottom of soccer, we get it. This young man is a very talented soccer player. We love to see a student with a passion and something that they've committed a lot of time to. But a lot of times students feel like they need to fill out every single blank in the activity section to just stretch this thing out. So I've had students that have listed every single time they were in a different musical, or every single time they played a different sport, but it was the same sport on different teams. We know the difference between varsity soccer and club soccer. This young man could have combined one blank about his participation in playing soccer and then maybe a second one about the volunteer operations that he's done with soccer. When students are repeating the same thing over and over and over again, I hate to say it, but colleges might kind of flip over that thing when they start to see the same thing repeated. Again, trim the fat, consolidate this into 1 or 2 blanks. I promise you it will pack just as much of a punch than repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Here's a second example of what not to do. And this happens all the time. I'm so surprised how often students put things in the wrong order. So I'll read this one out to you. This guy, first and foremost, he went recreational skiing out west. He's been out west 2 times. Next, he's in the French club. I attend weekly French club meetings. He's in the National Honor Society. Lastly, buried down here at the bottom, he's a Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association, PRCA. I'm a PRCA 11-time world champion. I've competed in 150 rodeos in high school. I'm a Wrangler National Finals Rodeo 6-time first. What is this thing doing buried at the bottom of your resume? This thing has got to be first and foremost at the very top of your resume. Again, hate to break it to you, but we go through these things fairly quickly. And if something that's that amazing is buried at the bottom, it might get missed. I'm gonna be honest with you, that kid could put only the thing about being in the rodeo association on his resume, and I'd be super impressed. No one is gonna sit around the admission committee saying, you guys, this kid was in the French club sophomore year, we gotta let him in. It's just not happening. Again, all these things you've done once or twice, I'd rather just have the big thing that you've done and trim all that other stuff. I promise you, as I said before, it packs just as much of a punch to keep the really big things. And then maybe you can go in de-escalating order from there. So when people tell you to catch someone's attention with the first line of your essay, same thing with the extracurricular section. Keep the most important thing very much at the top so admission committees can see it, and trim the stuff that really doesn't even need to be there. I know it seems hard to not put stuff on there, not fill out every blank, but trust me, it'll go a long way if you do. Getting into the weeds with just a couple more tips in the activity section. First, explain everything that needs to be explained. So we know some of the big time acronyms. We know NHS, we know SGA, but there might be an acronym at your high school that everyone knows and you think outside of your high school is just as common, but it's not. So I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. Next, it doesn't always have to be a traditional extracurricular activity. So there might be things that you just love to do as a hobby, or things that might be more mundane, but actually seem really interesting to admission committees. This year I read an applicant who he had all of his great extracurriculars, and then at the bottom, he mentioned that he loved to knit. He was a big guy for knitting. He just loved to knit scarves and sweaters. And on the last page of his application, I saw a bunch of photos of all these sweaters and scarves that he'd knitted for his friends. And like, here I am a year later, still remembering Scarf Guy. So again, it might be these hobbies that you might not think are a big deal, but maybe you're from LA and you like to go skateboarding in Venice Beach and teach kids how to skateboard after school every day. And it's not something that's a traditional activity, but again, it's something that can really go a long way to making yourself a little bit more memorable. A couple more tips here. Be specific and data driven. So when you're applying for jobs in the real world, you're actually going to be specific and data driven. So you're actually going to use kind of numbers to shed some light on your case. I'll show you what I mean by that. It's the same thing when you apply for a job in the real world. Lastly, you're going to have an opportunity to expand on one of these extracurricular activities. Soccer Guy will obviously talk about soccer. When you do that, keep that essay somewhat brief and somewhat black and white. So soccer guy, I want to know about the big things he's won, the state championship he was in. I don't necessarily need an essay here where he's talking about, the smell of the fresh cut grass of the soccer field every morning. I mean, that's a little bit too much detail for that black and white essay that I'd rather be a little bit quicker. So let's see what this looks like in real time, shall we? Here's the wrong way of doing things. First things first, this young woman is in the ACAM club. She's been an active member of ACAM for 4 years, and she's currently the CISS VP chair. I don't even know WTH, all this stuff stands for, IDK. Next, Meals on Wheels. This young woman has mentioned that she is on Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels is very important to my heart, and I love getting to deliver food to the needy. That sounds sweet, I guess. Lastly, Busboy just says, I'm a busboy, I clean tables. So let's see how we can make this pop for all the right reasons. Here's the right way of doing things. Remember ACAM girl? Now she's in the Academy of Creative Arts and Music Club. She's a founding member for 4 years. Simple change that changed that acronym to something spelled out, and it makes a world of difference for us. Next, remember how I told you I was using data and numbers might go a long way? Meals on Wheels girl, well now instead of just having a warm heart, she's collected 6,500 meals in her time there. She's raised $15,000 for the cause, and she's increased the club from 4 to 44 members. No one is going to sit around the admission committee saying she's got a warm heart. They're going to say, listen, this girl raised $15,000 for this organization. You're looking for things that we're going to pull out and share with the admission committee. Using data and numbers is a good way to make yourself memorable and have some of those pieces drawn out of your application with the committee. Lastly, the guy that was a busboy and didn't think it was that big of a deal. Well, he's a busboy at a local restaurant, saving money for college. He works year-round cleaning tables and interacting with his customers. 25 hours a week, 52 weeks out of the year. I go back to all these things tied together. Everything is done within the context of what's available to you. This young man's got to raise money for college. He could list nothing else on his resume, and I will be wildly impressed with the commitment that he's had to that job. Again, it doesn't have to be a laundry list. It doesn't have to be life-changing things. Put it in the right order. Show your authentic version of yourself with all this process. I promise you it will go a long way.
Yeah, Jeff, I wanted to add one point.
Sure.
When you're putting like the little, if you want to go back to the last one, putting like the specificities of like what you do and why. A big thing is to always say like what is it working towards? So the example of like, oh, I worked this job to pay for college is really good. Or saying like what type of change that you enacted at your position, like while you were there, whether it's like getting elected to something or saying, you launched a new service program or y'all help fundraise for this thing. But definitely showing like how you kind of like left your mark or what you did in that club job or so-and-so for however long is much better than just saying like, I was a general member for this long. But like even as a general member, I'm sure you did something.
Yep. That's a really good point. I love that. All right, so extracurricular activity is done. Now it's time to move on probably your least favorite part of the college application process, and that is filling out your essay. And I know no one watching tonight is excited to write their college essay. Okay, we've already busted a couple myths, and now we're gonna bust another myth. This one might be kind of surprising, so I'm glad you tuned in tonight. The essay that you write for college, the main essay that you write that you send into Tulane is not that important. I said it. I know. You're probably, your computer is now on the floor because you're so shocked. But stick with me for a second. Yes, it is an important part of the college application process, and it is one factor among many. But it is not often the make or break factor in a college application. Here's what I mean by this. Usually, the essay that you submit to us almost all of the time is going to confirm what the rest of the application has already told me. So if I'm reading your application, your extracurriculars look super strong, grades are really good, you found the balance, maybe your test scores are in range if you sent those in, I'm going to get your essay, and it's usually going to continue to the path of admission. Very rarely will I get to your essay and I say, this is the reason why this student will not be admitted. It doesn't very much happen at all. The reverse of that is true. Very rarely am I reading an applicant who's just not academically qualified. I'm not getting the right vibes from them. Very rarely will I get to their essay and I say, this essay is the reason we must admit this student. It just doesn't happen that often. So the essay is a part of the process. Don't miss the opportunity to share with us a little bit more about you, but don't stress about this thing. Moms and dads, if you're watching, yes, it's important, but it is just one factor among many. You don't need to hound your kid that much. They'll get it done. I promise you that. What I will also say, for about 80% of you watching tonight, your topic is probably just what I mentioned before. It's going to kind of confirm that you're going to be admitted. It's not going to be a real life-changing topic. 20% of you watching tonight are going to fall into that category where your essay topic itself really changes the way I view the rest of the application. So it really changes the way I look at your transcript, or it sheds some light onto why your SAT scores might be the way they are. These are big life-changing events. And if you're in that 20%, you probably already know it right now. The rest of you all feel like you need to have this tragic experience. Well, the reality is you don't. So wherever you're in that 20% or the 80%, here's some tips that I have for you all. First and foremost, pick a topic you love to write about. So if you love writing this essay, it's coming out really naturally, you're having a great vibe as you're writing it, I promise you, I'm gonna love it while I'm reading it. If you're writing an essay topic that just doesn't feel like the authentic version of yourself, if it's just not coming out naturally and you don't really like it, I promise you that's the same way I'm gonna feel when I'm reading it. So again, I go back to that authentic version of yourself. Don't write about the topic that your parents are telling you to write about or what you think colleges wanna see. Write about something you actually enjoy. And I promise you the process will be a lot less painful. A couple other tips here. Avoid application redundancy. We'll go back to soccer guy. So soccer guy is, soccer guy is obviously a superstar in the soccer field. And say I got also a letter of recommendation in there from his soccer coach. And then a couple of pages later on the additional information section, he's talking in the expanding of your extracurricular list, he's talking about soccer. What do you think I want to see about in his essay? Anything but soccer. I get it. He's a great soccer player. There's no doubt in my mind. Use this as a chance to tell us something else about you that we're not going to see in the other parts of the application. Again, yes, we want to see a thread of consistency through your application, but don't miss the opportunity by just regurgitating something you've already written about before. Oftentimes, and I wrote sometimes, but oftentimes, simpler is better. Some of the best essays I ever read are on really simple topics. So what is it like to eat dinner with your family on Friday nights? Or what was your first concert like? And how did that lead you into a path of loving jazz music? All these things that really talk about just a simple day in your life or a slice of your life. Colleges are really interested in that type of stuff. One of those shows I've been watching during my quarantine is Explained on Netflix. If you ever watched Explained, it's quite good. It's all these things, 20 minutes of something explained. So I learned all about K-pop explained. I also watched the one last week about childbirth explained. Wow, that is, whoa. But the other one I watched was Memory Explained. So why do we remember certain things and what is most likely to be remembered? And this documentary told me that the things we remember the most are really good stories. So think about a great story. Even if you're not an amazing writer, tell me a really neat story. Let me give you the format for a great essay. Start your essay by hinting at some sort of theme or topic. Then you tell me a really good story. Then at the end, you tie the theme to the story, shebang, shaboom, shabong, you've got yourself a phenomenal essay. Don't overthink this thing, keep it simple, keep it authentic, and write about the topics you like to write about. Right now is a great time to be writing a journal. Your mind is going crazy, the anxiety is there, you're so sick of your parents and little sister, write a journal about it. These journal entries might turn into some essay about a change of worldview that you had or a new major you might be interested in. So now is a great time to even test it. Even speak your essay into your phone and listen to what your voice sounds like. We know what the voice of an 18-year-old sounds like. It sounds a lot different from the voice of a 45-year-old mom. So again, keep this in your own voice. Listen to what your heart tells you. I promise you will go a long way. A couple roadblocks, a light switch essay is a little bit harder for us to digest. Usually that's something like, I went to this country thinking that I was going to change the young children there and they changed me. So like the light switch, you've got everything figured out. And it's the same thing with 17 years old. I get all these essays where everything has been perfectly worked out by first semester senior year. You've got it all nicely packaged up and you're ready to face the rest of your life with no challenges. And listen, I know things are crazy right now. Senior year is crazy as well. Your whole life doesn't have to be figured out at 17. I don't want to be worried about, your future or your safety at this point, but you can bring it full circle without assuming you've got it all figured out. Lastly, should I write about coronavirus? I don't think so. And here's why. 5 months from now, when I'm sitting in my office, finally free from captivity, as all of us will be at that point, hopefully, the last thing that admission officers are going to want to read about is 20,000 essays about coronavirus. And I know this is the biggest thing that's happened in your life so far. And this is talking to a guy whose first semester of college was 9/11 and also went through Katrina. So these big events are the most tempting things to write about. But it's going to be very, 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 very difficult to stand out with a coronavirus essay because everyone's going through this. There is not a literal high school junior in the world not going through this. So if you do want to write about it, you're setting yourself up to be really difficult to be standing out from the crowd. I can think of an example. Maybe if you're if you work at a grocery store right now, that could lead to some really cool stories about it. Again, I'm not saying don't write about it, but I'm almost saying don't write about it. I started working for Tulane in 2005. And that was right at the time where all of the students applying to college had literally grown up with Harry Potter. So like they were the same age as Harry Potter was as the books got older. And so we read thousands of Harry Potter essays. And my fiance will yell at me because he's a huge Harry Potter fan. I don't even know the difference between a Gryffindor and a Hufflepuff or whatever they are. But I got sick of reading it. And I saw Harry Potter and my eyes glazed over. As soon as I see those capital letters, COVID-19, I just can't imagine it's something I'm going to want to read about. So again, you don't have to figure this out right now. Try the journal thing. Again, what we're looking for is an authentic, great essay that you liked to write. At the end of the day, this was a really long way of saying, don't overthink this thing. Don't let this thing destroy you. Have some fun with it. I promise you, it's going to be a nice part of the application that's not going to have any make or break factors, but we'll be glad that you had it. Lachlan, anything to add? Do you have any essay?
Absolutely. Yes. I would definitely say, y'all, just remember to keep it simple and talk about something that you know a lot about. I mean, I remember for mine, I talked about kind of like the dinner, like sitting around the dinner table and like what it was like growing up in like a small town in South Louisiana. I talked about like hunting and fishing and just like how these are just normal parts of life. And yeah, I just kind of like talked about a weekend that it was like, oh, a typical weekend in home Louisiana. And what that sounded like. Did not.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love just a slice of your life. Those things are interesting. You know, I read a really good essay. As I mentioned earlier, I've recently discovered meditation, and I read a great essay about this kid. He was a local baseball player here in New Orleans, and he wrote about, you know, at first I thought it was gonna be the same baseball essay, and then he wrote about how after practice every day, he would just come home and meditate. And you know, it's just the process of what the body feels like when you meditate. He kind of wrote a great narrative about it. And obviously he had a slam dunk because he was writing to someone else who loves the meditation. Sometimes you happen to strike a good nerve with an admission rep. But again, it was just a simple, really well done essay. So good feedback, Lachlan. Okay. So right after you're done with your essay, there's going to be a section called the additional information section. Guess who reads your application when you apply? Real humans. Real humans like me who have hearts and feelings and really cute dogs who you'll see in a little bit. And we know you're human beings too. And we know your lives have had ups and downs. And we know that your letters and numbers on that transcript are just letters and numbers, but there is so much more of a story behind each of those grades and each of those experiences that you've had. So if you feel like you need to let us know something else that wasn't included in another part of your application, you have an opportunity to explain that to us. But I mentioned this, explain, but do not complain. We want to know maybe the challenges or roadblocks you faced, and the additional information section is a really good time to do this. So if you had a rough semester, maybe your sophomore year, if I'm reading your transcript and I see a big dip in your grades in your sophomore year, and I'm not going to know why, but then I get to the additional information section and you tell me a little bit about that was the semester your mother was diagnosed with breast cancer and how you spent a lot of time traveling back and forth to the hospital. It's not going to change your B's into A's, and it's not going to change your GPA, but it at least provides us with some context of who you are and the experiences that you've had. But it's important to remember whose voice carries the most weight. Counselors, your school counselors, you know, they're great people and they advocate for you. So you're going to want to make sure you have that conversation. I mean, I went to a huge public high school where I barely knew my counselor, but I even had those conversations. So who's going to be including this section about, you know, a learning difference that you might have or about an experience you have that's worth noting? Just again, go back to the idea of application redundancy. You know, if you want to tell me about your ADD, that's absolutely fine. You don't want to put the ADD in the additional information section, and then I've got a letter from your doctor about your ADD, and your counselor's telling me about your ADD, and your essays about your ADD. It's like, I'm getting ADD just hearing about your ADD. So instead, avoid the application redundancy, take the big picture view of the application, decide where each piece is going to go, but only use this application for the additional information section if you have to. If you really feel like you need to tell me about a school change or anything like that, use it. I cannot stress this enough. Don't put an additional essay in here that has nothing to do with additional information. We will it angers us because it's that thing about putting more information that we don't need. Less is more. Don't use it if you have to. If you want to talk about coronavirus here, maybe if virtual learning is just not where your headspace is at, and you really want to let me know the struggles you had, again, I get it. That might be a good chance to do it. But again, just be conscious of how many other students might have those shared experiences. But again, at the end of the day, we know that you have your ups and downs. We know there are big experiences in life that you don't want to have in your essay, but you want to make sure we know about. Anything you want to let us know about, small, big, put that in the additional information section. It can go a long way, but don't sneak that other essay in there. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the essay and how important it was in some regards, but how it's really not as important as you might think it is. However, there is one essay that actually is very important, and in fact, at Tulane, is more important than the other essay that you sent into the Common Application. So we're gonna do a quick activity. I want all of you watching from home in your living room, wherever you are, I want you to do this with me. I want you to take your quote fingers. Can everyone just take their quote fingers up? Lachlan, can you take your quote fingers and put them up for me? On 3, around the world, we're all gonna say the word optional. 1, 2, 3, optional. Okay, it's a trick. It's a trap. It is not optional. Colleges are doing this to trick you to see if you're gonna fill it out or not. Reason being, we want students that want to be here. We want students that have taken a little bit of time to attend some of our virtual sessions and to tell us why they think they're going to be a great fit at our schools. The essay that we talked about earlier, the Common App essay, you're sending it out to 5, 10, 12 schools that you're applying to. This essay right here, the optional statement, you're only sending that to us. And so I find the most authentic voice really comes through in these essays because you're writing it for me and you're writing it for Tulane to tell us why you think you'll be a great fit here. So a couple of tips I have. This essay is very important, and here's some tips how you can make yourself really strong why Tulane statement. The first is tell a specific story. So hopefully when we are reopened, some of you might have the chance to visit. Tell a story about when you visited campus for the first time. Or maybe you reached out to Lachlan, or one of our 170 amazing student ambassadors, and you just had an amazing, hour-long FaceTime with them where they told you all about their experiences. Tell me about the emotions you went through listening to them and hearing about them. I read a great one last year of a girl who talked about the blast of humidity that she felt when she stepped off of the airplane for the first time. And I'm like, yeah, I have felt that blast before because that is a New Orleans experience. But these are the things where you can kind of be memorable. So if you can actually tell a story, and I know no one can visit right now, that's fine. You don't have to talk about your visit, but there's a way you can really paint a vivid picture of this experience. I promise you we'll like to see that. Second tip, holler at your hookups. I am not talking about name dropping alumni or saying any rich donor that you know. I'm not talking about that at all. What I'm talking about is maybe there are people that go to Tulane that you know. Or maybe after this session, you email Lachlan and chat with him for a little bit longer. Or maybe you reach out to some of our tour guides. Or maybe there's a girl who was a senior at your high school last year and who's a freshman at Tulane now and you love following her on Instagram. Mention those students in your Why Tulane. Here's a couple reasons why. One, it shows you've done your research. You're actually reaching out to our students to find out the student experience. And two, we love to know the students who are loving Tulane and who are ambassadors for us. I recruited from Los Angeles for many years, and I know my students very well. And when I see them mentioned in Why Tulane's, I'm like, oh yes, I'm so glad she's loving Tulane. And she's great. And by the way, this girl looks up to her. So maybe that'll give you a little shot about more great students coming our way. So again, if you know some of our students, great. If not, we have thousands of them that are very bored right now and they would love to talk to you. Reach out to them and then mention them in your Why Tulane. Lastly, at all costs, avoid the generic Why College statements. We smell these things from a mile away. I can tell from 1,000 feet away if you've taken the word of Tulane out and replaced it with USC or the University of Washington or LSU or Miami. Usually these essays are just regurgitated facts from the website, or the whole essay is about you and all these things you've done. At the end, you say you want to bring that to Tulane. I've had many a horror story. I had one recently where a student wrote to me about how much they wanted to go to Tulane University in St. Louis. They remembered to change the Wash U in St. Louis, but they kept us in St. Louis. We took a big jump from New Orleans to St. Louis. Again, if you are struggling to write this essay, if you're feeling like you have to cut and paste, or you're using the same essay for multiple schools, or you just can't come up with anything to say in the Why Tulane statement, then you should not be applying to that school. This essay should be easy, it should be authentic, and it should be a fun essay to write. It should get you excited about the opportunity you might have to enroll at that school. So again, do not miss this opportunity. You've taken the time out of your evening to come hear me speak, so I'm gonna give you that big time secret. You've gotta fill this thing out.
Yeah, I would definitely say for the type of story that you want to tell, I loved Jeff talking about coming on a tour and talking to a student. But even if you never came to Tulane, like I would love to read an essay about someone's experience at a New Orleans restaurant, or just like walking down the streets of New Orleans, like hearing jazz music, or being on the streetcar, walking to Audubon Park, or maybe just hearing about a relative who came to New Orleans to talk about all this stuff. Like it doesn't just have to be about Tulane. There's also a huge city of New Orleans that has so much to offer. There's also, heck, I'm a huge movie guy. Like even saying that you watched a movie about like New Orleans.
You get
like,
a lot of Princess and the Frog.
What'd you say, Jeff?
You get a lot of Princess and the Frog. I think the girls that were that age when Princess and the Frog came out are now college age, so it's cute to read that. The number one thing that I read about is Uber drivers. So New Orleans is an amazing city. We have some of the friendliest, most quirky, unbelievable people, and that definitely pertains to our Uber drivers. So I read about quirky experiences with Uber drivers in New Orleans all the time. So again, I know if you can't visit right now, we totally get it, but find a way to kind of dig a little deeper than just the information you're going to see on our website. Again, use our students. They are our best ambassadors. Okay. Oh, wait, went too far. We've talked about the why Tulane statement and why it's important. The reason why it's important is that Tulane is a school that does, in some ways, expect you to engage with us. And I hesitate to use the word demonstrated interest because demonstrated interest feels very forced to me. Like you have to demonstrate your interest and jump through all these hoops. We're not looking for you to jump through hoops. We're not trying to trick you or trap you. What we're trying to do is have you engage with us to see if this is a place you want to be. New Orleans is a very amazing, incredible city. Someone told me once that New Orleans is the only city you miss like a person when you leave it, and it's true. But New Orleans also isn't for everyone. So I really, really want you to research this city and this school before you just fill out an application. We are a free school to apply to. We have no application fee. There's literally no barriers to entry. Now that we're test optional, you got nothing to lose. So in that regards, yes, we do look to see what types of touch points you've had with us. The biggest, most important thing is the slide we just talked about, is the why Tulane. Reason being, it doesn't cost a penny to fill out the why Tulane. Anyone, regardless of your background, your socioeconomic status, can fill out a great why Tulane and do some really good research on us. So we want to make sure it's equitable for everyone, regardless of how much money is in your bank account. So here's some tips I have for you to really engage with us. The first is when you apply. I strongly encourage you to apply early to Tulane. We absolutely give a leg up to our early action applicants. It is by far the best way to apply to Tulane. Early action, the deadline's November 15th. You've got plenty of time to figure it out. Non-binding, no application fee. And if you are admitted, you have all the way until May 1st to make up that final decision, and you'll get a decision from us before your winter break. You can also apply for our multicultural fly-in program to get down here on a campus. Again, applying early action gives you the best chance of getting admitted. It also gives you the best chance of merit-based scholarships. So if you are thinking about Tulane, take advantage of early action. Now, if you've been born in a Tulane onesie and this is the only school you want to go to, you have tuned into every one of our virtual events and you're irresistible, Tulane is irresistible for you, then you can consider applying early decision. Keeping in mind that early decision is a binding contract, and it's also an opportunity for you to really show to the admission committee that this is your top choice. But with that said, it's important that you have this discussion as a family, because what you don't want to do is say, I want to apply early decision. I just don't know where I want to apply early decision. It should be the reverse. It should be a family discussion about where you see yourself in the school that you love the most, and then you can decide to apply early decision. Saying you want to apply early decision to a school, but you don't know where, is like saying, I want to get married tomorrow. I just don't know to whom. Or I want a tattoo. I just don't know what I want it of. It should be the reverse. You should really know that school has resonated with you and that's where you want to be. And then you can make the decision to apply early decision. I will caution you though, the best chance you will have of getting a merit scholarship will come with early action. We do offer some smaller merit scholarships for early decision, but the lion's share of our scholarships are available to our early action students. So you want to make sure it's a good financial fit for you as well. Again, you got nothing to lose by applying early action, no fee, quick admission turnaround, and you've got the entire spring semester to make up your mind. Hopefully this fall, we'll be back on the road visiting almost 1,100 community-based organizations and high schools. Tulane makes a big point to not just visit elite private schools or really well-regarded public schools. We visit schools all over the country and all around the world. We make a point to visit tons of community-based organizations. This past year, we visited 42 community-based organizations around the world and mostly in this United States of America. But again, stay tuned. We will do everything we can to get back there this fall. If we're showing up at your high school or at an event somewhere in your hometown, we'd love to have you there. We'd like to see at some point you've making a chance to engage with us if we're coming to your high school or coming to your hometown. Again, by no means required, but if you have the opportunity to do so, we would love to see you. Lastly, I want to give you guys some tips of something that could be really helpful for you right now. So everything is virtual right now, which is tough, I know. I think it's also interesting because it's leveled the playing field. In some regards, regardless of your socioeconomic status, everyone has the same opportunities to do these virtual events and no one has the ability to visit, which I think is an interesting opportunity for folks to really engage with schools in a virtual space. And we'd love for you to do that. So tune into as many virtual sessions as you can. You're also going to be using email a lot right now. And I know that you high school kids don't like email anymore. You don't like the Facebook. You're all on the talk ticking and whatnot. But email is going to be a part of this process. And so what I wanted to do is send you some information about 5 emails you should never send your admission counselor. And then after that, I'll tell you about some good questions you can ask to admission officers that will help you find out if a school is a good fit. We'll go through these fairly quickly. I present to you 5 emails to never send an admission rep. First is called the Haster. Dear Mr. Schiffman, hello from California. My name is blank and I am a senior, didn't capitalize the letter I. I wanted to let you know I'm really interested in Tulane. It's defiantly a school I'll be applying in the early action round. I've always spelled with 2 L's, yada, yada, yada. Thanks, sent to my iPhone. you don't want to email your admission officer as if you're texting them or as if you're, sending them something that you just kind of whipped out and sent to them. I will be honest with you. There are schools that will look at this and they might even add it to your application. We would never do that to you. And I don't think any school ever would. But to avoid doing that, just take the time to sit down and write a thoughtful email to an admission representative. You don't always have to email us if you don't need to, but if you do, just make sure you're sitting down and writing a kind of a thoughtful email that doesn't have a bunch of spelling errors in it. One tip I always have is always address an admission officer by dear Mr. Schiffman or dear, Mr. Grace or whomever. And then I'll reply, I'm very casual. I'll say, thanks for your email, sincerely, Jeff. And that's your cue that you can call me Jeff. Some people might be more formal. If you can't tell by now, I'm rather casual. So you can definitely address me by my first name, but always starting with that formal introduction is a good way to do it. Again, this is not going to keep a kid out of college, but you don't want to give an admission officer any reason to kind of look at that and kind of think twice about your professionalism in the workforce. Okay, the next one's the vaguer. I get this one a lot. So say for example, I'm visiting, 6 high schools in Los Angeles. I've been driving all town all day and I get back to my hotel room and I've got, 100 emails to answer. And the first one says, Dear Jeff, I have a few questions about Tulane. Can you tell me your impressions on Tulane? Overall, does Tulane offer a great environment? Do students have experiences at Tulane? I'm also wondering if Tulane offers students a path to succeed in the future. So the vaguer has great questions. Don't get me wrong. If you've got some of these really broad brushed questions about experiences or opportunities, by all means, you can reach out to our student ambassadors, maybe even set up a Zoom call with your admission rep. But if we're having to sit down and answer these very long-winded experiences about, what we love about Tulane, it's just not always the easiest and succinct way of us to get some information to you. Again, you should be having these questions, especially as sophomores and juniors, but there's better ways to get these questions answered by sending these open-ended, broad questions. And also note, you don't have to email us. If you don't have questions, by no means are we counting the times you email us or hoping you email us. That doesn't have any part of the demonstrated interest process of Tulane, so don't stress out about that. Next is the imbiber. Dear Mr. Schiffman, my name is blank. We met last week. I was really impressed with Tulane. I'm interested in double majoring in political science with a concentration in social justice and management on entrepreneurship track. Goes on to write a beautiful email, sincerely, bluntsforlife@yahoo.com. So, I know things that used to be illegal are now perfectly legal. And I know the times are a-changing, and that is fine. And I am never going to pass judgment on Blunts for Life for his email address. And this isn't even really a problem anymore. Most students out there don't have a silly email address like cupcakes with a Z69 at whatever.com. That doesn't happen. But where this does come into place is how you act and behave in this electronic world that we're all living in right now. We are never trolling you. I'm not looking at your TikTok. I don't care about your Twitter. I'm not looking at your Finsta or your Insta. I just do not care. But all it takes is 2 little clicks with this phone and something you have done or said gets screenshotted and sent to us. I will tell you, it doesn't happen often, but the #1 reason why I rescind admission to students is dumb stuff you do to each other in a social media world. What I want you all to do is just be good to each other. Be kind to each other. Don't do things that you think no one will see, and don't do things that would hurt someone else's feelings. You think this will never happen to me. I'd never do something like that. Well, there was 15 students who last year had their admission rescinded at Harvard University, the smartest school in the country, for posting inappropriate memes on Facebook. Colleges are never really sure what you're putting in your application, and we never verify it. But what we are doing is sometimes we're looking for clues. If you're a good person, I'm not saying Blunts for Life is a bad person. He's not. But sometimes we see clues in there that show why you're a really great person. We read essays about or letters of recommendation about kids who hang out with different people in different social circles, or how you treat the custodial staff in your high school, or the people that serve you lunch in your cafeteria every day. Really great required reading for later on this evening. It's called Check This Box If You're a Good Person. Awesome article all about how do students behave when they think no one else is watching. That's what really we're looking for. So again, I got no problem with Blunts for Life here, but just be kind, be good. I promise you it'll go a long way. Next email, the over-asker. Lord have mercy. So the over-asker has really done it to us. How big is Tulane? How easy is it to design a major? Do you have a commute? All these are wonderful questions, but I just don't have time to sit down and answer 35 laundry list questions. Again, perfect opportunity for you to reach out to some of our ambassadors, pick up the phone and call us. Again, we're not that busy right now. I mean, yes, I don't want to answer all these emails, but these are all good questions, but maybe not the best use of an admission officer's time if you're just asking a laundry list of questions. Okay, Lastly, is a cut and paster. I get this one a lot. Dear Mr. Schiffman, I wanted to email you, introduce myself, and let you know I'm interested. I'm in Tulane. As of right now, Tulane is my top choice. Do you offer interviews at Tulane? It's obvious that this kid just took this email, ripped out Vanderbilt, put in Tulane, and probably sending it off to Emory after that. I've gotten emails that were obviously written by a parent, and the parent had things the student was supposed to fill in the blank. I read one that said, fill in your friend's name, who you're staying with on campus. It was very obvious the mom had written it and forgot to have the daughter fill in the blanks. Again, don't cut and paste. Again, you do not need to email us unless you have questions. Sit down and write an authentic email if you really have to. We're happy to answer your questions, but you don't need to cut and paste it. I promise you, it's not something that's going to go your way. All right. So in the essence of time, I know it's 7 o'clock. I'm probably going to go for about 10 more minutes if that's okay with y'all. And then we'll have some time for y'all to ask some questions. So I've told you all about what not to do, what not to say, what questions you shouldn't be saying. Well, what questions should you be asking? I got a list of questions here that are going to allow you to see if a school is going to be a good fit for you. And these are questions where if you're setting up a Zoom call with admission reps around the country and they say, do you have any questions for me? Or maybe you get a chance to visit a college campus and you're at a student panel, or you want to email Lachlan after this. These are some great questions to ask because these are questions that allow you to get to the real meat of what a college is all about. First, what's the political climate like on campus? That's a great question. And let me tell you, you don't want to be on a college campus where everyone shares the same political beliefs as you do. You want to be in a political climate where you can challenge each other's ideas and listen to what folks on the other side are saying. But just finding out what the climate is like is a great way to kind of see what the dialogue is like on our campus. What kind of student fits in at your school or doesn't fit in? I mentioned, New Orleans and Tulane, we're very lucky. We're a very, very happy place with a lot of very happy students, but not everyone fits in here. And New Orleans is not for everyone. And we are the type of school where there's a lot going on, and you have to be the type of person that's willing to kind of put yourself out there and kind of dive in head first because there's just so many resources and opportunities. So those types of students fit in really well. Great question to ask our students. What are your favorite classes or professors? If you ever happen to be on a student panel when you visit a college campus, hopefully in the fall, if you've got a bunch of students up there, ask them what they did last night. Ask them how they spent their weekend. Was everyone piling into the fraternity house or going to the sports game, or was everyone in the library, or does nobody go to the football game? That just gives you a good sense of what the vibe is off campus and what students do in their free time. What's the cost of living like? I love that question. How easy is it to get around town? New Orleans is a super affordable city. If you want to get, when you're old enough, if you want to get a beer somewhere or go out to dinner, you can find really cheap eats all throughout our city and hop on the streetcar for $1.25 and take you to the middle of downtown New Orleans. Lastly, this one's really important. What kind of support can I get on campus? You need to be asking these questions. So if you have learning differences, you should be asking what type of support we will be able to offer for you. If you come from a background that's not historically as represented at that school, you should be asking questions about what your experience will be like. If you are an underrepresented minority, if you are the first in your family to go to college, if you are a rural student, you should be asking what type of support that college will be able to provide you with. So I'm an African-American female wanting to know what type of support does Tulane have as a school that's predominantly white institution. Those are the questions that you should ask if you come from an underrepresented group on that campus, because you need to know what your experience will be like and what type of support you will get on that campus. If an admission rep is fumbling over those answers, maybe that starts to tell you that the support might not be there that you need. You should ask the questions about what type of successful opportunities you will have on that campus. So I'll give you a great example. Just 3 years ago, we opened our Center for Academic Equity here at Tulane with the vision and the goal to create an equitable experience at Tulane for everyone, regardless of the color of your skin, your sexuality, or how much money is in your bank account. So if you come from, if you're the first in your family to go to college, now we have resources for you. You have additional funding we can give you for your textbooks. Or Lachlan mentioned he's from a rural community. We don't have that many rural students here at Tulane. What will his transition be like? Those are all questions you've got to be asking. Again, it allows you to see the culture, the atmosphere, the vibe, the passion, the compassion that these schools offer. So again, great questions to ask on some of these interviews you might go on. It'll help teach you a lot about that college and the experience you'll have there. Lastly, I've just included a couple questions that you might want to hesitate before you ask. And I guarantee you, of the students in this panel tonight, in this group, I promise you've already asked this question to someone, and that's okay. So don't stress if you've asked these questions. But the first is, does your school offer internships? I have breaking news for you. Every single school in America offers internships. Literally every one of us, from Stanford all the way to your local community college, everyone has internships. If you put your best foot forward, reach out to career services, I promise you, you will find an internship. You know what else we all have? Study abroad. Every college has study abroad opportunities. So you can kind of reformat these questions. I'm super interested in eventually going into a career in sports management. What type of opportunities might I have for internships? Or I'm super passionate about Latin American studies. Do you all have programs in Latin America? And absolutely we do. One of the best Latin American studies programs in the country. So again, these 2 questions are not bad ones. I'm just so sick of answering them. I've answered these 2 questions 50,000 times in my life, and the answer will always be yes. Next question, how's your math major? How's your psychology major? How's your business major? I'm never going to say, oh, it sucks. You shouldn't, that's not a good major. That's just not going to happen. We wouldn't have these majors at our school if we didn't think they were good. So it's very hard for us to just come across and say, how's your psych major? We're going to say, it's great. It's interdisciplinary. It's a tough question for us to answer because we're never going to steer you in the wrong direction. Instead, maybe flip the switch again. I'm super passionate about, everything's going on in the world right now. I want to find a way to help. Well, we've got a great major in public health. In fact, we've got one of the best programs in the world for public health. So kind of reframe it to say more tailored to your interest rather than just how's X, Y, Z major. Lastly, if you remember nothing else from tonight's presentation, I want you to remember this last question. Which do colleges prefer? Jeff, should I take this summer program or that summer program? Jeff, should I take this class or that class? Jeff, should I write about this essay topic or this essay topic? The answer will always be, I don't care. I don't care. I have no preference on any of these things. What I mean by this is I want you as a high school student to stop spending your entire life doing things because you think it's what colleges want to see. I want you to stop making decisions for this guy, and I want you to make decisions for that man or woman or person out there. I want you to do the things that are best for you and your heart and allow you to be the most authentic version of yourself. And if there's a program you want to do, if there's something you want to get involved in, do it. But don't do it because you think it's what I want to see. When all this is over, when we can finally get out there and enjoy our lives again, I want you to go enjoy your life. I want you to participate in the things that bring you joy and passion. And I want you to stop worrying so much about what you think I prefer and what you think I want to see. Okay, some final thoughts. We're getting down to the final wire. This is going to be a fun and challenging time. It's going to be a really wacky time. There are people out there that are going to have great times here, and there's going to be highs and lows. It's just the nature of the college search process. You all are about to make one of the biggest journeys that you will make as an individual, where you go to college. It's an amazing journey. It's going to have its highs and lows. You're going to get good letters and bad letters. Find a college free time. So as you start to really navigate this search process, maybe you decide as a family that Sunday nights are the college search night. We talk about colleges on Sundays, and the rest of the week, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. Let me do my thing. Let me do my meditation, my sports, whatever I'm going to do to get my mind away from it. Moms and dads, you have a job. There's no time where this becomes more important than Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a disaster. For anyone who's a senior in high school, you've sent out your applications. Maybe you've got your heart set somewhere. Your early actions applications are out there. Your auntie is saying, did you apply to this school? Your uncle wants to know if you're applying to that school, who you've heard back from. Moms and dads, your job is to text everyone before Thanksgiving and say, we don't want to talk about colleges. My daughter does not want to talk about it. This is the last thing she wants to talk about right now. Thanksgiving, make it a college free time. Be open to a wide range of schools. Many of you watching tonight will end up at a college you've never heard of right now. You haven't even heard of it yet, but you're going to find it. It's going to come to you and you're going to realize this is a great fit for me. You have this opportunity to apply to any school you want and go to all these virtual sessions. I mean, we're all on the same page right now. We can't visit anywhere. So go to some virtual sessions. Maybe you say next week's going to be the week that I really research LSU. The week after that, I'm really going to focus everything on University of Southern California. Maybe a week after that, I'll look at some schools internationally. Take a week and really examine all these places and be open to that wide range of schools. Mom and dad, your grade as a parent is not based on what school that they choose to go to. Your grade as a parent is not based on the bumper sticker on the back of the car. So they'll find a great place that's going to be a great fit for them. Let them take the reins here, offer the support that you can. But again, remember, there's so many great schools out there. Trust your counselors. Like I said, I went to a really big public high school where I didn't know my counselor at all, but they know what they're doing. Use them. They're good resources. Reach out to them right now. I'm sure they'd love to set up a Zoom call with you if they can. And then lastly, remember, there really aren't any bad schools in America. There are only bad fits. You want to be at a school that's a great fit, and that's why that why college statement is so important. So really find those places. The question right now should not be what's the best school out there, but it should be what's the best school for me. Everything that you're going to see right here is available on my blog. You can always Google Tulane blog. It's the first thing that'll come up. Lachlan, anything on this last slide that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, let me unmute. Yeah, I would definitely say, just as a final thought, is just going back to what we said earlier. Keep it simple and be authentic. Like, just be yourself. I really liked your tip about the college free time. Like, yeah, if Aunt Susie keeps on coming to you during Thanksgiving, like wanting to know about college, just be like, sorry, bro, like not today. Like it's completely fine. Like I'm coming towards the end of my process of applying to law schools. So I guess I'm kind of on the next step as what all y'all are doing. And I did a lot of these same tips, like taking time to go back and look at my essays, taking time to, not try to say that in college I completely changed the world, but that I changed a little bit about myself is more important. And then, yes, the last line is best. There's no bad schools in America, only bad fits. Go to the school that you want to go to, not the one that your parents want you to, or not the ones that, USA Today top 10 schools in America tells you. Like, if you want to go to your local school, go there, or your state school. If you know you're going to have a better experience than at Tulane. For me, it was the opposite. Like, I did not want to go to LSU because I didn't want to go to 13th grade, but I'm glad I didn't do that because now I had the best experience I could ever imagine at Tulane. So that's all I'm going to say on that because I know Jeff's been going to town. So, but that's advice.
So I do have one last little thing that I want to tell y'all, and this is a newer part of this presentation I want to give. I just have a quick little story time that I want to tell you about. So in this last little 4-minute bit, I'm just going to tell you a couple stories as we wind down this evening. It looks like a lot of our questions about Angela, which is great. Okay, so this is a couple slides about me and my college church experience. That young man with the Jufro there on the left-hand side is me when I was a senior at Tulane. I happen to have been awarded the Homecoming King at Tulane, which I was very excited about. The next couple pictures here is right after I graduated from college, my family was able to really come up to bat for me and help me buy a very small little home right in the corner of Tulane's campus where I was going to move into with a bunch of my friends. And the photos you can see on the right-hand side are everything I've ever owned after Katrina. I personally lost everything I ever had in Katrina. This is me standing on a refrigerator. I only lived in the house for a couple months before Katrina went through, and you can kind of see all of my stuff right there is kind of sitting there. The reason why I mentioned that is because this is some before and after of Tulane. I mentioned at the very beginning of this presentation is that we're going through a lot of tough stuff right now. Everyone is around the world, and it's this sense of when will this ever be back to normal? Will this ever be back to normal? And what will my experience be like? When will this anxiety end? And I'm standing here telling you that, we can do it, and we will do it. The human spirit is a very remarkable thing, and many thought New Orleans would never recover. They thought our restaurants would never open. These slides you see right here is 2 pictures of our campus right after Katrina and what it looks like today. So the upper one is the middle of our campus, and it's now the site of our brand new dining commons, which is one of the most spectacular dining halls on any college campus in America. And the bottom 2 slides are the backside of our campus where all of our athletic facilities were. You can kind of see the bleachers of the baseball stadium. And then that circle building is our recreation center. And now you can see that's the site of our brand new football stadium, which just opened a couple years ago on campus. So again, I go back to that first thing that I mentioned is that if it doesn't, challenge you, it doesn't change you. And so here I am on the very first day of my school freshman year at Tulane. I was wearing puka shells because that was what you did in the 2000s. You wore puka shells. My father is also holding a copy of my first cell phone. So that just shows you how old I'm getting. But the reason I put this slide on here is because when I was a high school student, your age, I didn't take any of these tips. No one told me these tips when I was applying to college. And I had applied to one school in the early rounds. It was the place I wanted to be. My sister went to school there. It wasn't Tulane. It was a school in North Carolina, a very good school in North Carolina, the flagship university in North Carolina. We won't name it, but we'll just say it's in Rapple Rill, North Carolina. And I really wanted to go to school there. And I applied early. I thought I was going to have a good shot. And a couple of weeks after I applied, I got the thin envelope in the mail. And you all don't know what that means because you get all of your decisions online. But colleges used to send a really thin envelope to tell you hadn't been admitted. I was crushed. I was devastated. I thought I was never going to college. If I couldn't get into that school, then what was the point of going anywhere? And I was devastated. And shortly after that, I applied to Tulane. It seemed like a really cool place, great people, warm weather, amazing academics, awesome city. And shortly after I applied, maybe about 2 months later, they sent me the big envelope and I got in. And I guess the reason that I tell you that story is that, even directors of admissions get rejected. And here I am now, the director of admission of the school that admitted me. And knowing that if you remember nothing else, it's this final quote that I want to share with you all. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Whether that be your college search process, whether that be the craziness that's going on in this world right now, everything does have a beginning and an end, and it might not seem like it does right now, but if you remember nothing else, remember that, if it's not all right, it won't be the end. And I think that's good advice for both what we're going through right now and this whole college search process. Thank you to my man, Lachlan. It's good to see you, buddy. I miss you. I appreciate you being here this evening. Thank you also so much to Kristen, who's been dutifully answering all of your questions. I want to cut it out here rather than doing Q&A because it sounds like you've gotten all your questions answered and it is 7:15. Let me just hold on one second. Let me see if I can get Vincent. All right, I promised you would meet Vincent. This is my new puppy. This is who's getting me through my quarantine. I unfortunately had to postpone my wedding, so we got ourselves a little puppy, and this is Vincent, and he is the most incredible thing that's ever happened to us in our whole life, so we're very lucky to have him. So thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. If you do have any feedback, just post it in the Q&A. We would love to know how this session went, if there's anything else that we can answer for you all. If there's anything you liked or didn't like about the session, just put that in the Q&A right now so we know for a future event. And again, thank you guys so much for being here this evening. If you need anything else, just give us a holler and let us know. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye, y'all. Have a great night.